Microsoft Word 2003, Diagrams and Charts. We've seen in the previous two videos how we can use graphics, we can use graphs and charts and pictures and clip art and those type of things to visually enhance our Word documents. But now we're going to take a look at some of the particular charts and diagrams that can help us with things like organization, flow charting, and even the Venn diagram. Then are we going to do it? Right now. So we've looked at graphics pretty detailed. We showed some charting, but here we're going to see a few different ones, including the organizational charts, Venn diagrams, which are those circles that overlap, and you can kind of show a few different things, another good visual tool, and flow charting. A lot of people like to use flow charts to kind of show how things move, processes. Maybe you have those in a report. You can use flow charting to do that. So we're going to start off with taking a look at some of the diagrams and charts that we can use in our Word documents. Now remember, we've already shown you some of the graphing capabilities and the graphic capabilities, but let's say I wanted to do an org chart or a Venn diagram, some of the other things that we have, and not use Microsoft Graph and create the charts that we see. I want to do some sort of diagramming. Well, we can do that quite easily. Here we can see I've got a Word documents called the Acme organization. So here's my Acme Instruments Incorporated, and you can see I've got a list of my organization and staff. I got Dan, the CEO, all the way down to Mike, the resident composer. And that's great. I mean, as a piece of paper, I can hand this to somebody, but what if I want to show the hierarchy of the organization? Who reports to who? Does Mike, the resident composer, report to the VP of Sales, the marketing, manufacturing, the accounting, or does he report directly to James, the COO, or Dan, the CEO? What do you do? Well, I can create an org chart that I can add to this particular document that would then show how everybody fits. It's a great visual that we can use. So let's go ahead and start off by clicking on the Insert. Well, first, see where I've got my mouse here. I'm going to come to the end, click on Insert, Diagram. Now when I do this, it says, what type of diagram do you want? Now I've got my org chart, which is the first one, which we're going to show you. You also have the the circle diagram. The circle diagram is where you have like a continuous process, and you can put words right there in the little circles, and you can change the format. Here's the radial diagram I was mentioning, which shows relationships to a core element. You also have the pyramid diagram, which is foundation-based relationships. A lot of people think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Well, that's a pyramid. You can put things up on that and show that. The Venn diagram, which I want to show you, I'll show you after we do the org chart, and then the target diagram, which shows the steps to the goal. Step 1, 2, 3, and then finally, the final step, the goal, will be right in the center. So let's go ahead and do an org chart here. And when I click OK, it starts off with a standard org chart. We have one top and 3 child activities. So one parent activity or parent chart here, diagram cube, and then you have the 3 child cubes. I'm trying to think of a great way. How about nodes? How about that? Here's a parent node and here's the child nodes. You can tell I'm really good on those coming up with those terms. So here we can see that I've got the very top level one. Now I can add shapes wherever I want by coming up here. Notice I got my little floating org chart tool bar. Let's go ahead and anchor that here so I can not have to have it floating around. And I can insert shapes at any point in time merely by clicking in the area for the diagram, clicking on Insert Shape, and click here first, and then Insert Shape, and what I did was it inserted a subordinate to the one that I had right there. So once I'm in here, I can click in here, and I can click on the down arrow, and I can do a subordinate, a coworker, or an assistant if I want. So if I do an assistant, it will then add the little down arrow for the assistant. It's not a direct subordinate, it's an assistant. Or you can come over here and say, well, I want to now insert a subordinate, a coworker, or an assistant. So if at the top level, right up here, for example, we can see we have Dan, who's the CEO. Well, the COO and the CTO are kind of like assistants. So I'd need to add those guys to the top of the chart. So I come over here and I click on the Insert Shape, and I'm going to need a assistant, and click on here, and I'm going to need another assistant. So here's going to be my chart right here, and then I can put Dan, C, CEO. Down here I can put James, C, COO, and here I can put Jeremy C, CTO. And then I can add people as I need to. And if I need to add a subordinate to, let's say this is the vice president of sales, who, let's scroll up here, that would be me. Oh, see, I can't even remember my own title. Chris W. And I've got my word in, VP of sales. Well, obviously, I have a sales manager, Jeff, up here, Jeff G. So I can go ahead and insert a shape of a subordinate. And now I can add in Jeff G, sales manager, and see how quickly we can start adding to the particular org chart that we have. And we can add subordinates, we can add coworkers, we can create these hierarchies however we want, and just click here to add text. Well, maybe you don't like the exact look and feel of this one. This one maybe looks a little clunky to you. How do you change that? Well, rather simply, we just need to worry about the layout. How do you want the layout? Do you want standard? You want both hanging, left hanging, right hanging, or you can even do auto layout, which, you know, pretty much is what's going on right here. So if I say both hanging, if I do this, it's going to say first you have to change the layout, you have to select the manager shape above it and then apply the layout. Okay, so we click on this one. There we go. Sorry, I had to go at the top right there. So now you can see that all of these things are going to have both hanging off of this particular tree. So you can set the layout wherever you want. So you go to the parent, the manager of that, come up to layout, and you can do standard. It brings it back to where it needs to be. So we have these capabilities just by coming up to the toolbar and making the changes as appropriate. Some of the other things that we can probably do that will make it look a little better is maybe this is a little too large of a org chart. Maybe I want to shrink it a little bit. All I need to do is take the whole graphic area right here, grab the anchor with my mouse, and I can shrink it down to something that's a little bit more graphically viewable. So we can see right now that we have this, but notice because I haven't set how the text wraps around this particular graphic, it is going to change how it reacts to the text. So I can come up here and click on the text wrapping, and I can either do inline with text, I can do square, tight, in front of text. Again, these are things that we are very familiar with from looking at how we utilize our graphics. So I can say we can go in tight, so now it's going to bump up right there. I can even move the chart if I need to, move it over here a little bit, get it out of the way. We can then come back here and start adding more people if we need to report to Dan. And let's say we want to put in Mike S, and then have him the resident composer. And again, it just, however you want to make sure it looks, you can come in and utilize these layouts, the shapes, whatever it is. You can even click on the auto format if you want, and it'll say, how do you want it to look like? And the nice thing about this style gallery is a lot of people, you know, they like it to look a little bit different. We can use primary colors, things like this. Wow, that's nice and bright. We can do shaded. We can do fire, where it's nice and red. We got 3D color that we can use. Bookend fills, stripes, all the different types of styles that we can apply to our org chart. You can use double outline. But the one I really like was the nice primary colors. That just kind of snaps out at you. Really nice. So if I click that, I click OK, it will then apply it to the entire org chart. Now, what one person once asked me was, hey, what if I wanted to have one part of my org chart look like this and another part of my org chart look like a different type of style? All I can say is it's better probably to create two org charts that can be linked together, and you can use drawing tools on the canvas and bring those two together and then make one look like one particular type of style and the other like another particular type of style. And again, just about anything you can think of when it comes to you know, how you want this. See, if I want to move this one, oop, I lost my little grabber there. I can move where this is. If I want to move it over to here, and now Mike's underneath this particular parent organization or parent node. If I want to bring it back up underneath James C, I can bring him up over here. I can move it to Jeremy's area just by clicking it and dropping it over whatever the parent node is going to be. So for the example, the VP of sales might want to report up over here somewhere different. So you have all different types of ways of maneuvering and manipulating these particular org charts. So that's org charts. Let's take a look at a couple of the other diagrams that we have at our fingertips. Now we also have other diagrams that we can use. So let's go ahead and let's say we want to get rid of this org chart one right now and show you a different one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So it takes it out right there. And let's say we wanted to see the relation between sales, marketing, and manufacturing and where they overlap or who kind of handles that. We could use a Venn diagram. So I can click on the Insert Diagram and choose the Venn diagram. This shows areas of overlap between elements. Okay, that looks good. And it'll go ahead and bring it up and point, and we can add the text for whatever we need right here. And I could say, and notice this is a big diagram, so it's going to push down for 2 pages. I'm scrolling up right here. I'm going to go ahead and put this and lock in my tool bar right there for my diagram. And let's go ahead and size this down just a little bit. And that way we can fit it all onto the one page. So here we got it all in the one page. All I did, again, just like I saw with the org chart, was I grabbed the anchor and moved it down. So let's go ahead and click and add text. Here we can say this is manufacturing. And because that's a text box, once I click out of it, if I need to make it bigger, I can do that, and I can also maneuver it which direction I want to go. So whatever I want to do with this, it's all right here. So we can also add over here, that's manufacturing. We will say we want it to be, let's see, manufacturing, marketing. And up here we can say sales. So we have these three areas, and we can show that manufacturing's here, marketing's here. And then by clicking on these circles, you notice we can then put in the colors and different type of lines that we have for the circles, the color, how transparent they are. We can show size, the differences in size. We can even make them alternative text for web. So sometimes when you're loading pictures or they're missing, you can put some text in here for the shape. This is just another way we can format the auto shape. But the more important one is going to be something like this, where you're using the color and lines. And because we are interlapping these circles, they do have to have a transparency, so that way when they go over each other, you'll see the other ones. And so I can select each one and place these and make the changes that I need to for each one of these elements, whatever it is. Some of the other features we can use is, obviously, we can insert more shapes if we want to. If we want to make it, instead of just a 3, we can make it a 4, and then add something else like composing down here for our instruments. And of course, if we want to make the text fit a little better, we can change it down to 10. Maybe even down to 9, whatever size we have here. I can check it. Oh, it's Roman numeral or Times New Roman 8, so I can come over here and say I want the text here to be 8. There we go. Boom. Now it's going to match. And then of course we can change in size the diagram as much as we want to in order to change the flow of this. We can also change which way we want. Do you want to move the shape backwards or forwards? Maybe you want the purple more on top. You can do that, or move it around the area. So we can say which, and notice it keeps the title, the text right here as I move it around. Well, I want sales over on the right, or I want it on the bottom, or I want it in the left. I can move that. I can reverse the diagram. Merely by clicking this, we'll then reverse it back into the different styles that we have. So we can flop the two sides that we have. The layout, of course, we can fit the diagram to the contents. We can expand it. We can even resize it, similar to what we saw there. So if we want to resize the diagram, it allows us to say, okay, do you want to move it out just a little bit? We can do that. And now notice it gives us all of our composing, manufacturing, and marketing, as we saw. Just because they're text boxes, we can still maneuver them around differently depending on how we want to change the size, the shape, or the color. We can also change the look and feel of it with the auto format. So if I click on that, we have the outlines, double outlines, the shaded. Here's our primary colors again to make it even more brilliant if you want to. You can use gradients, square shadows, which will give the names of the whatever it is, and they'll put a box there with a square to help it out. all these different types of styles, similar to what we saw with the org charts. So let's say we want to go with a thick outline. That sounds like fun. So we'll put that on there. And now when we deselect off, we now have not only the Acme Instruments Inc., the organization and staff, and we might have had the, if I hadn't deleted it, the org chart, then we would show how each one of the groups interrelates with each other and overlaps, and where the different areas, and we could even get even more detailed with using our drawing tools and placing these. So this is just another way that we can create these diagrams. Now there's one more thing that we can do and show you, and that is by using AutoShapes, we can create flowcharts. It's actually fairly simple. Let me go ahead and open up a new blank document so we can show that. And I'll drag this down so we can see it. And I would want to create, utilizing our AutoShapes, to create a flowchart. Now with AutoShapes, I can select on it. Remember, we used, I think, the stars and banners that I wanted to. But notice, I also have flowcharts. So I can use the connectors, and I can use my flowchart for my boxes. So if I wanted to create a flowchart alternate process, I have my processes, decisions, so I can start creating my drawings just like I did before. In this case, I can say I want one right here. So here's my first one. I can then come up to my AutoShapes, go to my connectors, create a straight arrow connector from here over to here. And then I can create my next AutoShape. I can come up here to my flowchart, and I can say, now I'm going to make a decision. So I'm going to add the decision right here. And if I need to move the decision so it matches up to the arrow there, I can do that as well. And just expand that just a little bit. There we go. Look at that. Now I got my decision, and I can create my down arrow here and use my connectors. And let's say I want to do a kind of an elbow connector here. So I come down here, create that one, and we have that decision coming down here, and I can come over here. That will be maybe my yes decision, and then I can have my no decision go over here by using another connector. So you can see these are just different ways for us to create really our flowcharts, and they can be anything that we want. So if we're creating not only an org chart or a Venn diagram or pyramids, we can also create these flowcharts as well, utilizing the AutoShapes. And we can be as creative as we want. I mean, take a look at the different connectors. We have the different types of flowchart mediums. We've got multi-documents. We've got manual operation, all that follow the standard flowchart diagramming techniques that you might have learned when you went into business skills, marketing, when you go into engineering and process design. These are all the same ones that you'll see. So you have them all at your fingertips as part of the AutoShapes in your Microsoft Word 2003. So org charts, diagrams for our Venn diagrams and our radial diagrams and all those things, pyramids, and even flow charting, something that we can use to spice up the visual representation of what our documents are saying. So as we maneuvered through our organization here of our video, we took a look at org charts and how we can use those to showcase who reports to who and who's in charge of who, or who to ask if you need to get something done. These are always nice instead of just text. We also had some Venn diagrams. We're just one of many diagrams. We have radial, we have core, we have a whole bunch, the pyramid diagrams. These are nice to be able to, again, visually represent certain ideas and concepts. And then, of course, the power of flow charting. We showed you what AutoShapes were before, but flowcharts is really where AutoShapes shine. You can create just about any kind of flowchart you can think of, which are very powerful tools when you're trying to show a process or a particular policy on a particular document. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.